In this video, I will talk with you a little bit about the nature of well-structured paragraphs and especially the role that topic sentences play for in creating a well-structured paragraph. If you haven't read any of the material for this week yet, that's fine. You'll get some more information on some specific strategies on how to do that and some more examples in those readings as well. So, and there's also one of the readings from our textbook by Helen Sword also focuses on the way I see well-structured paragraphs or the role that well-structured paragraphs plays, namely in creating a coherent story. And Helen Sword's chapter is all about storytelling. A little caveat, and I think I mentioned this in the module description, Helen Sword is looking at examples of texts that have been written by very seasoned scholars. And in my experience, seasoned scholars often have a lot more leeway and freedom to write in ways that maybe novice writers don't. So keep that in mind when you read her text. But I wanted to include that chapter because the reason why this module is focused on well-structured paragraphs and creating a red thread for your reader is really the essence of effective writing. Taking your reader by the hand or giving him or her or them a red thread to hold on to get through all the information you're presenting them in your text. I'm sure you had the experience as a reader at some point in your life, I certainly did, where you felt really lost in a text. Now that's something effective writers avoid. And in science writing in particular, where the topics already are fairly complex and not necessarily as accessible to a general public as maybe some other topics are, that is particularly relevant. So let's look at a few well-structured paragraphs and some examples of topic sentences and also some devices that authors use throughout the paragraph to really present a coherent narrative. So first, I call this back to basics. Let's look at the structure of the paragraph. And this comes from one of the readings actually for this week, the website from Bioscience Writers. Basically, and this is throughout, across the board, I think a lot of writing instructors agree that most well-constructed paragraphs have a few things in common. They have a topic sentence, and the topic sentence really serves as the introduction for that paragraph, telling the reader of what this paragraph will be about. They're very useful. They're also great pieces to transition from one paragraph to the next. So topic sentences are really great. One thing I do want to mention about the topic sentences and the writing process. In my experience as a writer, I don't sit down, write my topic sentence, write the rest of the paragraph, and everything is nice and dandy. I usually go back, and that's a place where I always revise. It's the beginning of paragraphs, my topic sentences, to make sure that I'm taking and I'm giving that red thread to my reader. So elements of a well-constructed paragraph, topic sentence. You always want to have a focus on a single point of discussion in a paragraph. That's another piece I often see when I work with writers. Paragraphs are really long, and they address about 40 different issues. Well, maybe not quite 40, but too many. So focus on one item. Coherent writing is another element that makes a well-constructed paragraph that is easy for readers to understand. And some of the other principles we're covering in this class, we'll get to that too, like sentence structure, avoiding passive voice, avoiding nominalization, using strong verbs, etc. And then you want to come to some completion of the point towards the end of the paragraph. Personally, I find this is probably the thing that if that's not there, you can still have a decent paragraph. But really effective and skilled writers can really wrap up a paragraph quite nicely with a little bow, meaning a beautiful sentence. But if that's not happening in each paragraph, that is not the end of the world. Most importantly are the topic sentence, having one point of discussion, one topic in the paragraph, and then the writing is coherent. So let's look at an example from a fairly complex text. It's a publication from Nature, and I will put this article in our supplemental reading section for this week as well. So here I have highlighted in bold the topic sentence. Most of the HIV-1 targets are common in different cell types. However, subtle differences exist. So just looking at that paragraph, I have this beautiful juxtaposition of like, hey, this is common in this area. However, right? And the however is such a wonderful wonderful tool to really indicate to your reader, I'm switching directions here, I'm presenting a different argument. So I'm expecting in this paragraph that these subtle differences are going to be the point of the paragraph. And indeed they are. So the next sentence, I love this phrase, for example. It is it's a phrase that is widely used, so don't use it in every sentence, but it is often underused by writers. It's a clear marker again for your reader, that red thread, like, hey, here I'm going to give you an example of the main point I just made in my topic sentence. So for example, this article continues, HIV-1 almost never targets the IKZF3 locus in CD3-4 plus hematopoietic stem cells, whereas and so on and so on. I'm not going to read all this because, again, the content isn't so important, but is the structure. So it gives, the second sentence gives us an example. It presents, so, it stays on topic, namely on these subtle differences about HIV-1 targets. And then the next sentence starts with another really great marker, strikingly, and then very active, we observed. So again, here the writers are clearly indicating to the reader with strikingly, like, wow, they have made a big discovery, or something is really unusual in this particular observation they're presenting to us now. We observed, and then so on, whatever they observed. And then this piece that I've underlined, so this is what they observed, while something was almost absent from zone 1 in cord blood CD3-4 plus cells. So again, these are complex sentences, but that are clearly introduced to the reader with these markers, expressions like strikingly or for example, and even in the topic sentence, however. And again, we're staying on topic. It's all about these subtle differences, right? And the strikingly sentence indicates to me as a reader something extraordinary is going in. And then they have another wonderful expression towards the end here, conversely. Again, another great transition expression that, continues weaving together a paragraph in a coherent fashion. Conversely, the TAP2 locus was absent from zone 1 in CD4 plus T cells, and so on. And then again, the same structure as earlier. While it was distributed between zones 1 and 2 in CD3-4 plus cells. So there seems to be some comparison going on of different cell types, right? And those are the subtle differences that exist right here at the beginning of the paragraph in the topic sentence. Those subtle differences are basically continually examined and presented to the reader. If you take all of these things out and just leave the observations, as an experienced scientist knowing this topic, you probably could still follow, but it probably would be a lot harder. So again, the goal here is to make things as easy for your reader as possible. Now, of course, in this paragraph, maybe some of you are very familiar with this topic. I'm personally not. About HIV-1 integration site selection, which is the title of this, part of the title of this article, but I can still understand the logic behind the argument. Let me take out these markers here. There we go. So another example, this one is going to be a little easier to understand. It's a piece that I've put together as an example. So here, these two sentences, and take a moment. By the way, I forgot to say this earlier. Always feel free to pause and look at the sentence, read it, and then continue with the video. Or pause throughout, take a moment to read, and then come back to my narration. So here there's two sentences about a needle exchange program in Vancouver, Canada. Canada illustrates that needle exchange programs alone do not reduce HIV infection rates. The authors suggest that needle exchange programs are most effective when combined with other elements, for example, counseling and educational programs. It's really nice information. It's, fairly well written. The sentences aren't too long. It's clear. But what's the point, right? So as a reader, I'm like, okay, what shall I do with this? So let's look at a slight revision of this. Here is a topic sentence that gives me the context of why this information is important. Data on needle exchange programs suggests that such programs can lead to a decrease in HIV infection rates in urban areas. However, right, similar to before in the previous paragraph, these programs lead to even greater success when combined with additional programming. So this topic sentence clearly tells me, okay, there's some additional programming that is needed and it will be discussed in this paragraph. And again, same structure. You'll see this over and over, particularly in science writing. in journal writing where so much information and so much dense stuff is packed together in a short amount of text. For example, a needle exchange program in Vancouver, Canada was unable to reduce. The authors suggest, and then I also added another sentence, a more recent study, and this is one that I made up. The Strafty et al. Study actually exists. This one here by Smith and Johnson is a fake one. But just to get the point across, a more recent study reports impressive success rates of needle exchange programs when offered alongside counseling programs. So again, those are all the sentences and the rest of the paragraph after the topic sentence support the idea of the topic sentence that needle exchange programs are particularly effective when combined with additional programming, and here we get some examples for that. So to wrap this up, this is basically, sorry about that, this is topic sentences are really, really important. And so for the writing assignments in this week and also in the following weeks, really go back before you submit an assignment and look at each paragraph and think, am I giving my readers a clear idea what this paragraph will be about? And it takes some experimentation with this. You won't become the greatest topic sentence writer from, now to tomorrow, and that's okay. But it's a really useful skill to have and to put yourself into your reader's shoes. Because as the writer, you always have an advantage to the reader. You know more about the stuff than your readers will, but you'll have to make sure your readers will be able to follow you.